Good day, Patrick. How the heck are you today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Swell, thank you. I get
Awesome.
super pumped that we're doing this convo. We happened to just have a good chat after one of our group chats, our Q&As, and we're going back and forth about conditioning. So I'm super pumped. We're going to get a lot of training stuff, but let's dive into you. I always want the audience to know I like the person to really be able to give their own intro. Tell us about yourself. Who are you, and how did you get to do what you're doing now?
Cool. First of all, I'm just a regular dude who found a passion for fitness. I am a husband, been married for about a year. I'm a dog dad.
Mhm.
I love my pets. I'm an avid fitness enthusiast, hiker. I love being outdoors, trail running, things like that. My profession, I am a personal trainer, online fitness coach. That's my passion, is basically like movement and exercise and fueling your body and just making sure that I'm not wasting talent and wasting years on this earth that is, a finite life that we have. Um, that's pretty much what makes me tick, man. Just kind of spreading my love for fitness and taking care of your body. I spent a lot of years behind a computer desk, uh, humbly making pretty good money as somebody that was in my 20s. I was very fortunate to have a well paying job
What
at
kind
the
of profession?
cost.
What
I
was
was doing sales,
Okay.
um, which is like, such a broad statement, but kind of like that's like the new age or the old school, like when nowadays people are like, what do you do? I'm a consultant. It's like, what does that mean, dude? So no, I sold leads, um, basically like selling online leads where if somebody was looking to get a mortgage and they filled out a mortgage application online, I would connect them with a mortgage officer or a loan officer in their area. So lots of sales behind a desk for 10 plus hours a day. Again, I was very blessed. I had a very, very good boss, worked for a great company, made good money, but it was at the cost of not taking care of my body. Um, Definitely, was a three sport athlete in high school. So I was familiar with exercise and sports. And, we had a weight bench in the basement as kids. So I was working out my entire life during this stretch of, my career of being a sales rep. I was very on and off, never consistent, but our friends, we'd hit the gym for a few months here and there. And then, God, probably 15 years ago, I really got into it. Ended up kind of weeding out the sales job, bringing in the thought of being a personal trainer and opening up my own facility locally. And that's what I ended up doing. Got certified, had a few friends that were coaches that I was kind of picking their brain, trained a bunch of people for free in my parents' backyard. And then once I got certified, I leased out a spot and opened up a little personal training center where I did one on one sessions, group classes, and just kind of ended up growing from there and eventually realizing that online coaching was a better way to reach more people and to help more people, and also a better way to make a living as a personal trainer because it's really difficult. When you own your own facility and you have $3,000 in overhead, there's almost not enough time in the day to make enough money to break even, let alone make a living after breaking even. So now I'm full blown online. I got clients all over the world. Um, it's really, really cool. It's been a blessing. But yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I guess something else. I used to own a hip hop record label.
Whoa.
So while I was doing the sales job, again, my boss was a really great dude and let me pursue my passions. And yeah, I met a guy handing out CDs and it was really good. And I was like, yo, you want to try pursuing a hip hop rap career? And he obviously said yes, because that's the point of handing out a CD on the
Yeah.
streets. And so I started a record label and I actually had some pretty good, solid success with that, but it wasn't a long term thing, unfortunately. But great experience, great education. Um, super fun like time period in my life. So yeah, sales rep, hip hop record label owner, and now personal trainer, online fitness coach.
That's a good repertoire, good transition. I think that's so cool that like just when someone goes really outside the box, and especially in the arts, right? Like anything in the music world, anything in some sort of like niche that's just more difficult to make money, but even just to get the experience, I think that's so cool. And for you to end up from that desk job, I love hearing it. People going from desk jobs that they just don't like and realizing that there's just more to this. And so many people just stay trapped there. So many people don't feel the benefit of chasing a pursuit. And I mean, there's also a huge discomfort in it. So I'd be curious about that because trying to chase a career in personal training or career in fitness, it's fucking hard. And so, from your experience, I guess like you mentioned, it was a financially, comfortable position, so that helped you with some of the backing. But what was that transition like, starting your own business? Because that's a very scary thing to do.
So I had already, when I went into fitness, I had already started the record label and technically failed. So I didn't have that fear because
Right.
I already hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
And I'm somebody who has always been very driven and relentless. And I always went against the grain. So to an extent, working for somebody else wasn't an option. When I did work for somebody else in that sales job, I was I wasn't micromanaged. I worked for a young guy who was super successful and allowed me to do what he knew I was capable of doing. He taught me a lot, but I wasn't micromanaged. So I kind of worked for myself in that way. And there was really no option for me. It never crossed my mind that I would like get a real 9 to 5 where I was being micromanaged and it was super corporate. So I didn't even think twice about starting a business, starting the gym. And kind of funny story how the idea came about. I was at a local gym. So I started out doing a lot of calisthenics in my training. My still a good friend of mine from California, was like a warlock as far as body weight training goes. And he's one of the dudes who's doing like not only human flags and handstands, but like planches and like front lever pull ups and planche push ups. And we ended up becoming really good friends. So I was very much into body weight training and I was doing box jumps at a local gym and had a very good vertical. I was very blessed to have a good vertical jump. And I was doing box jumps on a pretty high stack of the steppers. Like basically you stack them on top of each other. They aren't like actual plyo boxes. They're like steppers for step classes. And I stacked a
Mhm.
bunch of them up. And I was doing a ridiculously high box jump. And the woman who was teaching Zumba classes at the gym, she wasn't even an employee of the gym. She was like an independent contractor teaching her classes at the gym. She came up to me and told me, "You can't do that. It's dangerous." And again, I'm a pretty strong willed person. So you're not just going to come up to me in public and tell me I can't do something that I'm clearly already doing, especially if you don't work at the facility. So I said, yes, I can. And I kept doing it. And she actually, right before I went to do a box jump, she ripped the top stepper off of the stack that I had. And so again, this is like 20 years ago. So I was probably maybe a little less than 20 years ago. I was probably 26 years old. And I took the box back from her and I put it back and I said, like, you can leave me alone. I'm going to do this. And her husband was there working out and he didn't like that I took the box back from her. We got into an altercation, not physical, but he basically like he did push me and put his hands on me because he thought that I was like disrespecting his wife. Long story short, long story long, I was removed from the gym and they said, you can't do that type of exercises in our gym because it might encourage other people to do the same thing. And I said, well, that's the same thing as going up to somebody that's bench pressing 250 pounds and saying, you can't do that because people might try bench pressing 250 pounds. Like you have to have some critical thinking and like know your role and not do something you're not capable of doing. So after that, I had a friend approach me and say, "Hey, man, I want to open a gym with you. I see that you're certified. I see you're doing this. Like, I think it'd be cool if we opened a gym together." And then he backed out. And I was talking to my dad, and I was like, so and so backed out of like our business plan. I'm thinking of doing it myself. My dad was like, "Well, obviously, why wouldn't you?" He's like, "You're more than capable of doing it yourself. You don't need somebody else to do that." And my dad has always been supportive in a way, and he's always loved me, but we've never had that like relationship where he would outright be like, "Yeah, you need to do this." And it's funny nowadays, my dad openly thinks very highly of me, but back then he wasn't like patting me on the back much. So when he said that, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I can do this." So I rented a space and I started training people. I basically just did what I knew that I had to do to make a living. Like I said, I already failed at one business. I feel like I already hit rock bottom, so I had nowhere to go but up. I had a really nice car, and I sold that to buy the equipment. And my mindset was like, okay, well, I'm just going to work hard to buy that car again. That didn't happen. Little did I know that like being a personal trainer isn't the most like financially like free business to be in, but nonetheless, like everything's worked out and everything happens for a reason. So I really couldn't be happier about where I am, where my business is, the people I've met, the things I've learned, the fact that I'm still learning and still growing. Yeah, I've just never really been one to be afraid to chase my passion. And I feel like the vast majority of people go their entire life without doing or pursuing a single thing that they're passionate about, whether that be starting the business or moving on the invention idea. Either way, you know what I mean? Like people don't even get into fitness because they're just afraid. Like people just naturally go into this shell, and the majority of people don't chase even one thing they're passionate about. And I think that's a shame. And I've just never been that person.
Couldn't agree more. I wonder what it is. If it's there's always a biopsycho analysis of it. Like, is it psychological? Is it biological? Is it genetic? Like, I had a father who was a farmer. He literally was so passionate every day doing a hard fucking job. And there's also the fact that my parents chose to give us opportunity and not guilt, right? Not like you had to do a certain path. And we were super, super privileged with that. And like that could be a cast down thing. I know my partner, her parents would be like, you got to go get a job, be secure, because they're immigrants. They're just looking to like try to make sure that they have something more secure. So they weren't as concerned about chasing passion, maybe. And at the same time, she's very passionate about whatever she does. So it's still ingrained with her to go after passion. But you're right that people have this fear of going after passion. It doesn't occur to them to do it. I think the school system doesn't foster it a ton, right? Because the school system is like, you have to take these courses. What course did you get to choose? Nothing until like high school. And even then, it might not really be the niche that you're after. And you're spending a ton of time doing shit you don't want to do. And I could go on a whole tangent about how all the necessities that we have in school, why don't we know more about education or about like physical activity and nutrition at a young age?
For
But
sure.
like you had mentioned, the idea of just chasing passion isn't ingrained with us. People are more likely to have fear. And we're really like, I want to say privileged, but I do want to say lucky to realize that it's within grasp. And I do think it's a privilege if you can go after it, because sometimes you got to put food on the table. And if you're a person that's putting food on the table, some people just, I think, do put so much more value in the experience of being comfortable at home than being uncomfortable at work, but chasing a passion and taking that risk. And like, I know people very close to me that are just like that. Talk to many people where I'm just like, you used to be passionate about this. It's like, why don't you go after that? It's like, you know what? I got to be there for my wife. I got to make sure we're financially settled. I talked to another friend and it's like, my work life's miserable, but I love my family life. Like I'm financially set. I'm good, but I'm miserable at work. And it just never dawned on me to live that life. So I think it's definitely something about us that is a little bit different. When did you really feel like you were making a big transition in your mindset around fitness? Because you said you were stuck behind a desk, you were dealing with a lot of that. When did fitness start to grab you?
Well, I think the big driver, at least when it, like I said, I was going in and out. Um, I was very inconsistent. Like, I had friends along the way in most parts of my journey where we would like hit the gym together. But the time that it stuck, and I don't know why it stuck, I just know why it restarted this time was because I was basically trying to get my mind off of a breakup.
Classic.
And I think up until then, I was always hitting the weights. And I started getting back into the gym to get my mind off of a breakup. And then I started to explore more than just hitting the weights. And I'm not knocking weightlifting, um, to each their own, but for me, it was boring. I didn't feel like my competitive edge was getting like tapped into by just going and like doing a bodybuilder split with my boys. Don't get me wrong, I live with three of my friends. There was four of us living in a house together in Orlando, and three of us trained together. We'd go to the gym on our lunch break. We'd come back. We all worked from home. It was a bodybuilder split. It was cool to hang out with my boys, but like my competitive edge just wasn't being reached. So I started doing boxing, and
Nice.
that helped a little bit. And then that's when I started to like find calisthenics and handstands and backflips and human flags. And I was like, oh shoot, like this feels a little bit more like it's scratching that competitive edge itch that I have. And again, I'm not knocking weightlifting. I do a lot of it these days. But to me, it's not like something you really have to work towards an ability to do. Like if you can't do a handstand, you have to bust your ass for months, if not a year or years to be able to do that, as opposed to a machine chest press, a dumbbell bench press. Like you can do it pretty much at any capacity. You just either lower the weight or higher the weight. Right. So like my friend wasn't doing an exercise that I couldn't do. Maybe I was just doing less weight than him. And then there was exercises where I was probably doing more weight than him and whatnot. But like if I was hanging out with somebody who could do a handstand, I could try until I was blue in the face. And if you can't do it, if you haven't like reached that level of skill, you can't do it. So that's what really made it stick when I was like, okay, I'm not just going in and just like doing this mundane exercise where I'm just like repeating the same movement. I have to like train and fail over and over again until I build the skill to do this. So I got hooked on doing handstands and human flags and backflips, and that's what like kept me there.
Mhm.
Um, but then I started realizing that like, oh, I'm making a lot of progress, like training these skills, but I still eat like a child. And granted, I was in my mid 20s. So to an extent, like I was still a child. But I was like, I wonder what would happen if I started eating well. And to an extent, like I had an aesthetic body because I was young and I was so active. And even doing that type of training, like handstands and backflips and human flags, like you're burning a lot of calories, especially if you have 2 hours a day to work out. So I still like had abs, but I wasn't fueling my body properly. So I started eating better. And then I like really got shredded and I really had a lot of energy and I was performing really well. And I was like, oh, shoot. So this is what happens when you exercise and eat right in combination. And then that's when I was like, I was just fully in it. And at that point, was probably a little bit before I started to like get my certifications. But that's what it was, man. Once you realize that combination of the two of like exercise and eating well, and I think that's something it's pretty common with a lot of people, right? Like I think as coaches, we want this like optimal scenario where people are fixing their nutrition and working out at the same time. But for some people, if not a lot of people, it's difficult to make two massive changes at the same time. It's difficult to get somebody to start working out 5 days a week and change what they eat 7 days a week. So oftentimes, like, what's the lower hanging fruit? To me, it's let's get them exercising, moving more, living an active lifestyle, feeling good about the fact that their body is pretty good at moving and grooving and doing something that makes it feel good. Like getting your heart rate up feels good, like instantly. Breaking a sweat actually does feel good, even though it's not an indicator of a good workout. So if you can get someone to start working out regularly and just like sort of being conscious about what they eat, but not pressing like a calorie goal or a fat loss goal, there's a high likelihood that they're going to reach a point where they're going to be like, hey man, I'm feeling really strong and I'm making a lot of progress, but my diet needs some tweaking. Like, do you think it's time that maybe I start eating a little better and like focusing on my nutrition? And you're like, yes, I've been waiting for you to ask this because now is when the real magic happens because you've already created the one habit. I didn't want to force another habit on you because it's a little bit much, but let's combine these two. And that's when it's like time for takeoff. It's pretty much been my experience for well over a decade with people.
Completely agree. The one thing I want to hit on first, though, is like how everyone is different for what it means to be physically expressing your body. And everything you described there, like I had something similar. Like I liked weights, I always liked weights. But when I was younger, I got inspired by boxing because I wanted to be able to defend myself. I was a short, little, chubby kid, and I was like, I don't want to get beat up. I want to be able to surprise people. And then it came along with the fitness benefits. And it's funny then because I got into weights and everything you described about the simplicity of it is what I fell in love with.
Amazing.
It's like I don't need to be crazy skilled. There is skill to bench pressing and deadlifting. I do actually love that, but it's like just keep spending time in it. You're guaranteed to be so much stronger than people.
For sure.
And even bodybuilding, the thing that I think a lot of bodybuilders love is that it's just follow the process. Like you'll hear every bodybuilder who loves it, the process, the process, the process. And it's because they are required to just say, I can prove to you, I can follow the steps. And then what you had mentioned about like the calisthenics, like I have a client I'm working with on calisthenics, and it just speaks to him. It is like I have my brother, he loves long distance running. It just speaks to him. And I've dabbled in a little bit of everything. And I just think people do need to find a physical expression. There should, it's hard to get around not requiring a baseline of something for aerobic, something for
Mhm.
strength. But what is most of your interest? And this was a really big thing that my friend who does a lot of research on flow and just like what gravitates people the most, curiosity is the most important indication of whether or not people will keep interest. When she mentions you just had curiosity. And so if you're always showing up to something with curiosity, like imagine you're going to school and you're not curious about it, you're not going to pay
Mm.
attention. You go to
Story of
class,
my life.
right? You go to class, it's like, what is the prof going to teach me today? You're immensely interested. You're taking notes, and that's exactly what happens with exercise. And to hit on the account or the consistency standpoint, totally agree. It doesn't matter in weight loss that nutrition is the biggest driver. The biggest thing that I agree with you creates consistency is exercise. Plus, all of the physical benefits are far more immediate, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
an exercise, you get the endorphins. And the biggest thing to me about exercise is structure. It's actually the best part about exercise compared to nutrition because the structure in exercise is do this thing, 3 to 4 days a week, maybe five if you have more time, 30 to 60 minutes. Like just cut out this 30 to 60-minute window in your life. Can you do that? Yes. You repeat it. You see some benefits. You get a little stronger. Now, let's do that with nutrition, but do it all throughout the day and then deal with your emotions around that because exercise isn't nearly as emotional. It's not cultural. It's not environmental because you can confine all those things to be very segregated in time, very organized in what you're doing. And hopefully you find some fitness culture and stuff like that, but there's way more vulnerability in nutrition. So
For
you
sure.
want that first kind of buy-in experience from the exercise. So I think that's great
Yes.
advice for people to hear is like, if you're struggling with either of them, certainly try to eat healthy, but nothing will get you a better momentum shift in a short amount of time to give you that extra push to want to do the nutrition better. Because once you show up for yourself 3 to 4 days a week to just start doing exercise that is uncomfortable, you'll do more uncomfortable things. I couldn't agree more. I think
Yeah.
that's a really, really good piece of advice. What else do you think people, let's dive into this a little bit. What else do you think people really miss when it comes to fitness and nutrition that should be more apparent to them?
Well, first of all, I think it's so hard to navigate all of this in the world we live in because there's so much bullshit to weed through on social media. It's so confusing. There's so many different gyms, group classes, trainers, coaches trying to convince people that this is the best way to work out. And it's probably not a good sales pitch for a trainer or a gym to say everything works. With consistency, everything works. Do I wish everybody did my program? Of course I do. But at the same time, I can't train everybody. So I really don't wish that everybody was like filling out my coaching application because then I would be spreading myself too thin and I wouldn't be able to help people in a way that they deserve. But the truth is, everything works. So I think to kind of circle back to how you were saying that, like with me, weightlifting was just like a little bit boring for me. And I didn't feel like I was getting my competitive edge off. But for you, it was the opposite. Like you loved it. This may be a horrible analogy, but as a pet owner, there's something to be said about getting the dog that fits your personality. Like if you live a sedentary lifestyle, you shouldn't get a labradoodle that needs a ton of exercise or a pit bull that needs a ton of exercise. You should be getting like a toy Yorkie that can sit on your lap all day.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who's super active and you already go on a 60-minute walk every day or you already go hiking, then it's probably best for you to get a dog that can be active, can run and jump and play because that's going to fit your personality. Same thing with fitness. Like there's nothing, I don't have to say this for a third time, but there's nothing wrong with weightlifting. But for me, it was too much stillness, right? Like I needed, and yes, you can do supersets and bounce between exercises, but I just needed something that didn't have so much stillness. And when push comes to shove, like a bench press or a chest press is the same as a push up, right? Like it's the same mechanics. But to me, like sitting on a chair, pushing dumbbells or pushing a machine was just too still for me compared to doing a set of push-ups or a push-up variation. So I think what a lot of people miss is that like you have to find some sort of enjoyment in what you do. And I mentioned this before we started recording that like, yeah, there's something to be said about like doing something hard and doing something difficult and creating a stimulus that your body has to say like, okay, what I currently have in my capacity isn't enough. I have to adapt so I can change and grow. But you can find that within almost any type of fitness discipline. So finding what excites you, I think, is super, super important about fitness. Otherwise, you're not going to continue to do it and you're not going to be able to be consistent. And you can find more difficulties and way to increase the stimulus and add variation within that. Like if you don't want to run, just because your best friend like loves to run, you don't have to run with them. You can do something else. Maybe it'd be cool if you got in good enough shape so you could go on a run with them every once in a while. But if they're doing a 10K training program or a half marathon training program, that doesn't mean that's the only way to get fit. You can get fit and get into exercise any way you want. And the truth is, if you're like me, and it sounds like you too, there's a good chance you're going to go into multiple different kinds of fitness throughout your journey. I went from lifting weights to boxing to calisthenics to partner acrobatics to handstands to running to lifting to hybrid. I mean, I've done 8 different forms of fitness and it hasn't negatively impacted me. I've just, as I grow and change, I've evolved in the things that I enjoy and love. And I'm 40 now and I'm in the best shape of my life because I've just continued to find things that I enjoy that I can continue to do consistently. And I think that's the most important, like long-winded way of saying just find what you enjoy.
Couldn't agree more. And for the folks who are listening, he's 40 and jacked. Like you're in great shape. And the
Thank you.
it's an important note, right? Because you can tell by all your varieties that you've been in. You used to be a desk person and now you're just loving fitness. It's so important that people realize it's just move. There is going to
Yeah.
be oh, and I also got a note, like I love how much of a dog lover you are, that was your comparison. Like you can see
Just
how
kidding.
much your mind goes into dogs. Great analogy. That's awesome. The the main thing I think people need to appreciate is like if you're an open trainer, like you mentioned, you don't have to do my program. There are so many programs, and like you say, social media, unfortunately, it's going to be like people are so negative. We have to like be outstandingly negative on someone else, and it's the people who are more open is like, yeah, there's a lot of ways you can do it. Don't get attention, right? And that's kind of the problem. The fundamental basis is just making sure that you have just some of your basic needs met. You want healthy muscles and enough muscle, you want good joint structure, and there are many ways that you can do even forms of strength training. Like calisthenics is a form of strength training.
Yes.
And like I mean, there are so many different ways that you can do aerobic training. It could be running, it could be biking, it could be like I am so thrilled that there's a sport like pickleball that it's just like something getting people out that doesn't make them intimidated. That everything from like people who are young to people who are in like seniors are actually getting excited and competitive to just move. I even see people like you might see people rip on these they're like on these bungee cords and they're flying around
Yeah,
class
yeah,
and they
yeah.
always rip on them and I'm like, yeah, it's fucking weird, but I'm like, you're moving. I don't care if you're like a baby
Yeah.
in a jumper, you're fucking moving. And it's kind of goofy, but I'm like thrilled to see people go to explore things. People get hooked on all kinds of crazy stuff. The challenge, like some people will be really set in their ways, and I always think it's hilarious to see bodybuilders or powerlifters or it's usually bodybuilders versus like people doing kettlebell works. I always see those go back and forth and like how it's like, oh yeah, this is what you need. No, this is what you need. And it's just like, guys, just shut up. Like this, you're literally speaking to the wrong audience, anyways. Because the guy who's interested in bodybuilding isn't thinking about kettlebells, and the guy who's interested in kettlebells isn't interested in bodybuilding. Like
For sure.
just admit that you guys are going to be good at two very different things. And
Yeah. And the only people who are agreeing with you are the people who already agree with you. Like
yeah,
you're making that point, and people that disagree are going to argue, and the people that already agree are going to be the ones who support you. And the person
100%,
doing the bungee class, they're 100 times better off doing that than they are doing nothing.
100
So
times.
who cares?
That's exactly it. And you even mentioned this like before. It's how could you have fun? And fun has been lost since your childhood. It's just a simple fact. My mantra of this podcast, my program, has always been life's not about the pursuit of happiness, it's about the happiness within pursuit. Because when you find something that makes you not think entirely of the outcome, but of the process, intrinsic motivation, that's what you need to do more of. So
Yeah.
when I have someone who's like, yeah, I also play some hockey. Can I still do that? Yes, I want you to do as much as you can. I still have this sport or that sport. Let's do it. Fit it in. I have clients who like one client in particular loves a hit class, those high intensity interval classes.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm like, as a strength coach, that is a poorly designed everything. It's poorly designed. But that is an environment. She's with her people. She
Yeah.
is with a
Community.
group. She's bringing up her heart rate. And I say, hey, choose lighter weights, move it fast, move it more explosively, make sure that we get recovery day after, and have some fucking fun. Because
Yeah.
that's what you need to do. I used to run boot camps. I structured them, I think, better than a lot of these things. But
Same.
I still had some boot camps where I'm like, yeah, it's probably overtraining. But god damn it, we had some fucking fun in those high intensity classes.
Yeah.
And I even miss it. I miss being able to get in that environment, push that high intensity in a group environment. Group
Yeah.
environments is actually what I think online fitness training misses the most.
Of
And
course.
that's something that we just can't provide people.
Yeah.
You can
The energy and community is spectacular, and we can't
mm,
replicate it.
no, it's unfortunately the one thing. And I mean, that's where I encourage people to like, hey, bring a partner, bring a friend, go do a class that you want to do. And so I totally agree. Fun. And I think I want to kind of shift this into like the athletic population because we're going to talk about that right away here. And like even athletes need to have this within their training, right? Because they can be so regimented in everything they
Yeah.
do. And whether you take a break from something and try to do some other exploratory things in your workouts, you got to have elements of fun. You got to have elements that intrigue you in what you're doing. So I fully agree. Let's jump into that because I think we had a really interesting chat. So basically, for context for people, um, Patrick and I were on a group call with Jordan and Mike, our online mentors, and Jordan's a high level strength coach, and he was talking about the benefits of zone two cardio because I was talking about conditioning for boxing athletes, and in which I totally agree that it has some benefits. And Patrick came because he didn't hit on a lot of the benefits of high intensity, and that's what I was trying to be more clear to. Is like, am I hitting this right? And he spoke so high as zone two. So for people who have context, we have zone two cardio, which would be usually, correct me if I'm wrong, so around 60 to 70% of your heart rate max, right?
I don't usually do that. I mean, that's probably going to like ring the most bells for people, but that's not usually how I refer to it. Um, because it's just a very generic way of like coming up with somebody's zone two. But I mean, the way I would put it, and it's not right or wrong, but like I just say most people will know like steady state cardio, something
Mm-hmm.
that you can maintain for 60 to 120 minutes. Not that you have to do it for that long for it to count, but like it's a level of intensity that you could basically hold a conversation while you're doing it for 60 minutes. Like if you're on the treadmill with somebody, it's it's harder than just like, again, dog pet reference. It's harder than walking your dog when they're stopping every 3 minutes to pee on something or, to sniff something. But it's not so hard that you can't be doing it. Like your heart rate goes up a little bit. You might break a sweat, but you can still hold a full blown conversation for 60 minutes while doing the activity.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, the conversation one is a common one. The one that I messed around with is like a simple one for boxing athletes was how fast can you go with your mouth closed? And it's like if you do that, not everyone, but a lot of people, they'll kind of find a normal limitation, and it's also going to train you to use more of the nasal breathing, which helps you use more diaphragmatic breathing. And when I started using this in my runs, and the heart rate probably was even higher, but I felt like calm for endurance. Like I felt like, oh, I can go harder, but like only if I open my mouth, which means like I'm at a good limit. And so
Yeah,
it was
that's
like a
fair.
it was a good limitation where people might not know the talk test if they don't have anyone to talk to. And so it was a way to like whether you're going for a run, you're on a bike or anything, how fast could you go, but you can't open your mouth and maintain that intensity, pay attention to the heart rate and that intensity. And that kind of helps regulate it with minimal equipment, right? Because not everyone has a heart rate monitor.
For sure. Yeah. And if you are just doing nasal breathing and you start to blow snot all over yourself, you're going too hard.
You're going too heavy. Like it
Yeah.
should be a comfortable nasal breathe, like a little bit labored breathing, but it's also going to train you to use your nasal passage, which a lot of people won't. So when people first do it, they actually got to go slower. As you get better at it, you become more comfortable with it, especially because we're like in Winnipeg. So when we're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, like in Canada, it gets pretty dry and cold.
Mm.
So I don't encourage that as much when we're in the winter months, but eventually you're literally, I remember when I started doing this, my nose was just too cold. Like I just
Yeah.
couldn't
Oh, yeah.
handle
It's
it.
horrible. Yeah.
Too dry, especially if you're outside. Most of the time you're doing
Yeah.
indoors in the winter anyways, but no, and so the benefits of zone two have been really kind of reestablished. I mean, earlier in the fitness, it was like, hey, that's only fat oxidization. So that's what you want to do for fat loss. It's like, nah, it's just calorie deficit. So now it's like, hey, zone two cardio actually might be really beneficial for the endurance aspect because so many people, because hit training came out and hit training was like super like ramped up, and hit training is very important. So I would love to hear your model of this. And let's like kind of be specific to how you envision it for like a boxing athlete. And I'll be specific to kind of the boxers that listen to my podcast. We're talking about amateur boxing. They have 2 to 3 minute rounds with 1 minute rest. Very intense relative to what they're used to, right? Because it's still a very intense sport, right? Like even though it's not like a pro boxing that's like 12 rounds, it's still such a dramatic thing. And they need a good level of endurance, good level of power and development, even at this amateur level. So how do you feel like an athlete in that position would want to look at zone two versus high intensity interval cardio?
So the way that I would suggest any athlete look at it, and I will try to spin it in the context of a boxer towards the end of this, but zone two is basically about how efficiently your body can supply energy to the muscles and to your heart. Think of it comparing a quarter mile drag strip or a quarter mile drag race where top speed matters. That's like high intensity, as opposed to like the Daytona 500 where fuel efficiency matters, right? There's two different things here. So, zone two is going to be your aerobic base. The better your base is, the longer you can go. And that's where fuel efficiency comes into play. That's going to allow you to last deeper into the fight, more rounds of efficient boxing where you're not fatiguing. The higher intensity work is going to be more, you're able to like empty the tank at the end of a round, or if you're somebody that's playing like soccer, you're going to be able to like chase down the guy with the ball. If you're a football player, you can, you're a wide receiver catches a pass and they're breaking free and the cornerback can hawk him down. That's going to be your top speed. That's going to come from your high intensity training. But the ability to maintain and keep up with the other players and have energy throughout the entire fight or throughout the entire game is going to come from steady state cardio. So while the opponent is getting tired in the later rounds, your ability to have energy later in those rounds is going to come from a strong aerobic base through zone two. The ability to like explode on them for a 20-second, just all out combo is going to be your high intensity work. My thing is, as we know, the pendulum always swings to different ends of the extremes. And I think that right now the pendulum is swinging so far to the extreme of zone two that just like HIIT was super popular 10 years ago, I think zone two is super popular. So I think that a lot of these athletes have a really good aerobic base and they could be lacking some of that higher intensity stuff. I mean, from my experience, I know that a lot of my friends that were boxers growing up, and maybe things have changed, and a lot of guys that did karate, they did like a lot of running.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I remember like my friends were like, yeah, we had to run 6 miles before our session, or you know what I mean? Something like that. Like we had to run for an hour before this or after this. And like that's great. They're probably building up a solid aerobic base, or like jumping rope for literally boxers can jump rope with their eyes closed. Now, I would argue that jumping rope is a horrible form of zone two for somebody who isn't good at jumping rope.
Oh, absolutely.
The same way that jump or swimming is a horrible form of zone two cardio for somebody who sucks at swimming, because you're like a fish out of water. You're struggling so hard. Your stroke is garbage. So you're probably out of zone two if you're swimming at your home pool back and forth and just like borderline drowning in the waves.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a strong aerobic base because you've been jumping rope for your entire life or jogging your entire life, it might behoove you to do a little bit of this high intensity work on an Airdyne or on the assault bike, because that's going to help you with like top speed. That's going to help you go hard for 20 seconds and then take your minute rest or however long your rest is, and then go hard again in the next round.
I totally agree. It's essentially like you got to practice repeating sprints to be able to sprint. And the zone two, as you mentioned, it's like the reload. The way that I would really try to explain it to people, it's like your ability, because between sprints, between that explosive punching combo, even whether it's football, hockey, between like whenever you've done something explosive, what is happening right after? Aerobic system. And the aerobic system is going to say, okay, because you've trained us enough. We have way more vascularity going to the muscles. We can bring down this heart rate. We can clear out any lactate or any acidity really quick for you. We'll make sure you have more ATP very quickly. Now, if
Yes.
you only do sprint intervals, right? Or what I actually think is the biggest kind of miss is like so many people will do too hard of running. Like they actually go too hard in their runs, their long distance runs, and
Yes,
they're
for sure.
they're basically doing essentially what most strength coaches know not to do is they put you into the lactic threshold because guys are going to try to make hard times and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to run 6 miles as fast as I can. It's like, nah, not unless you're going to try to do a 6 mile race. Don't do that. And so people don't realize
For
that they're
sure.
going too hard in what could be zone two. And I think that's where a lot more boxers end up and a lot of athletes end up. It's like, oh, I got to do road work. I got to do more road work because it's like the Rocky thing. It's a classic thing. And it has not left the sport. It's still very pervasive in the sport.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay, well, do you think soccer players sprint a lot? Do you see them doing a ton of road work? They'll run, but do you think they do a ton of road work? Does any other athlete do a ton of road work other than the traditional fucking boxer? I find that this sport is so captivated by culture, and not to mention exceptions. So the exceptions are Muhammad Ali or
Of
Mike
course.
Tyson. Yeah, they're doing the road work. They're doing, oh, but they're doing it. But they're doing it. It's like this, the exception is not the rule. Like
Of
if you
course.
were them, we wouldn't have this conversation because you'd probably already be a pro, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so it gets really misconceived. And around the zone two, love that you pointed out the issues with how you're doing it. So I'm not a fan of road work very much. I only like if you're on the road, unless it's sprinting or one run a day, I think it should be low impact. Do it so efficient, like an elliptical, a bike, so like you can do it and you can train later that day. Like it will not affect the sport. So many people are not efficient at jump rope. That is just a hard cardio for you. Like
Yeah.
it's probably one of the of all the skills that I've tried to teach people in boxing, jump rope's the hardest fucking one.
No shit.
Oh man, like by far, because people you can always get to kind of get a skill, even if they don't know how to punch and rhythmically perfect. If someone doesn't have rhythm and they're not fit enough, maybe overweight, jump rope is just so fucking hard. It's just so hard because you're literally jumping, right? So it's
Yeah.
one of the hardest skills for people to get. And swimming, same thing. That could be a great idea. I mean, pretty sure Usyk does the swimming, probably because he's a swimmer, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you're pointing out a lot of these flaws in the system. So my lens for people is has I am seeing a benefit in my boxers to do more zone two, but just the right amount. And this is what I think more athletes and for sure boxing athletes need to understand, and anyone who wants to be in shape need to understand is there's an ebb and flow because this is extra training, right? You have your sport specific training, which is gonna beat you up, which is gonna put you in that lactic threshold, gonna make your shoulders burn, do all those things. And what we as strength coaches want to do is allow you to recover, yet still get a little bit of accessory benefit from, say, zone two, which why you see more of that being like you can spread out more zone two, but you got to be really careful with how you sprinkle in your high intensity because you're already inherently doing it in your sport.
Yeah.
So how would you approach that? And what kind of, description do you give athletes when they're trying to figure out more sport specific, yet still complement it with some of this other training?
So one thing I do want to add real quick to what you said, as far as like road running and not being a fan of too much road running, it's important to put the caveat that as far as sport specific goes, like you mentioned, if you want to get better at a skill, you have to do that skill.
Mm-hmm.
I think the benefit for boxers is they they really don't have to get better at the skill of cardio. What I mean by that is like if you're a runner and you want to get better at running, you have to run. So if you're going to run a half marathon on the road, like you have to put most of your work in on the road. Like an elliptical or a stairmaster isn't going to do it. If you're going to trail, I'm a trail runner. Like I got to hit the trails. Doing my airdyne zone two work isn't going to make me a better runner, but it is going to help me with my aerobic capacity, which does have carryover to my running. So I say that to say, like, if you're a boxer, your zone two work, you're actually in a really good situation because your zone two work can be done on the most low impact
Yeah.
modality that you can find. You're not getting any more benefits by doing your zone two or attempting to do your zone two, because you're probably going to be out of zone two on the road. You're actually probably reaching a point of diminishing returns due to the fact that you are over your threshold and your impact is high,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like most people will be better off doing near threshold work, like you said, not over threshold work. But like again, if you want to be a cyclist, if you're a cyclist, running isn't going to make you a better cyclist. If you're a runner, cycling isn't going to make you a better runner. But if you're a boxer and you're just trying to build your aerobic base and you're trying to build your top end speed, any modality that you enjoy is going to be beneficial. So the most, and also the lowest impact is probably going to be the most beneficial, right? So like airdyne, assault bike, rower, even elliptical, like keep it low impact and save the beating for your sport specific training. Something that I really try to use with my athletes is I try to put the harder work at the beginning of the week when they're most fresh.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to eliminate, and so we can both, I work with a lot of runners, so I guess my mind is always going there. Or at least I'll say I don't work with any boxers,
Right.
right? So we can obviously like have the conversation of where there's carryover. But for me, if I'm having somebody do near threshold work that is some like fartlex on the road
Mm-hmm.
and they're pretty high intensity, or even if they're like shorter intervals that, is more like surge work and like accumulating fatigue threshold work, I'm going to have them do that earlier in the week when they're freshest, assuming that we have a Sunday rest day. I am a big advocate of like, you got to have a full rest day. And even
At
for
least once.
myself, somebody who
Yeah.
does not like to sit still, like, yeah, my rest day is I'll take the dogs for a walk or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
like, you got to have a rest day. And the way I operate my programming for runners in particular is I try to get them 2 days off of their legs per week. And that could mean that one day is a full rest day. And the other day that they're off their legs is their upper body workout, upper body strength day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're still doing something. These people who, athletes, that we have to protect them from from themselves. I
Always.
believe as coaches who train athletes, we have two main jobs: protect them from themselves and manage their fatigue. And they are kind of tied together, because a lot of times, like managing their fatigue, it is because they want to work out 7 days a week, 2 sessions a day. And we're also protecting them from themselves
Mm-hmm.
burning out, reaching a point of diminishing returns. In my case, putting on junk miles. Like, you don't have to run for 2.5 hours to train for a half marathon. Like, you could run, but you'd be better off running for an hour in the morning and an hour at night,
Mm-hmm.
or an hour 15 in the morning and an hour 15 at night. Because after 2 hours, your form's getting bad, your stride is turning into shit, and you're just accumulating junk miles. But if you can run for 75 minutes in the morning, get some food in you, go to work, let your mind, get back to life, and then have your pre-workout meal, and then do another hour 15, you're then accumulating 2.5 hours of, or almost 3 hours of work. Yeah, 2.5 hours of work. That's quality work. You're
Mm-hmm.
eliminating the junk miles. Um, that's how I would approach it. Like I said, like harder, more intense work at the beginning of the week, one full rest day, and at least 2 days off of the legs for a runner in particular. You may have a similar style like that for boxers, but like I said, I just took some personal training boxing, one-on-one boxing lessons 15 years ago. Um, I don't really have the skill of training a boxer as far as the structure.
Right.
But that's how I would do it for like a runner, a Spartan athlete, even a cyclist. That's probably a similar take that I would have for a cyclist.
I think it's so well stated, your two concerns there. And I think I hadn't put that in my hierarchy, but like it's still embedded in it is that like my number one is the do no harm is like injury prevention. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're trying to prevent harm, essentially. Do no harm and prevent harm. Like every time I always orient this for my boxers because boxers will skip their strength conditioning and runners probably do too. There's a lot of people who just
Hell
don't
yeah.
realize it benefits every single discipline. And it's like, you're not doing this just to get strong. That is a side benefit. It is so you don't get hurt and you can do your sport because nothing gets you better at your sport than your sport.
Of
So
course.
that's number one. And then the second is this came from Don Moxley. He was on this podcast. He was strength conditioning coach for a bunch of wrestlers in the States. And he had said, we're actually strength conditioning and recovery coaches. And it's like literally navigating that. So essentially is your next piece is protect them from themselves. I was the boxer that did 6 days a week and took one day off. That's it. And did it all the time. And then you try to double up because you think you're supposed to. And then fucking try to swim in the morning like a fish out of water, go to sparring at night, almost get knocked out because I was too fucking tired and thinking you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to double up. You're supposed to do all these things. And so my premise has been similar. I feel like boxing is such a total body that I'm just like, I don't do much for lower upper splits unless there's a specific case. We're going to use our shoulders. We're going to use our legs always. So then I always look at like 2 to 3 intense days and one active day or a complete rest day. And then you kind of get the ebbs and flows. And, I imagine for a lot of runners, it's like you're always rampant. You got to have like some intense days and longer distance runs. So you're always ebbing and flowing around the intensities of what that stimulus is going to do to them. And then, like you mentioned, staying away from junk volume, staying away from anything that you're going to do that is not going to actually contribute to anything, even if you think it is. And
You're
so,
better off lying on the couch than doing junk value.
totally, people don't realize recovery is like the key to strength, right? Like it's
Yeah.
this where it's the other end of the spectrum. Like if we started talking about the fitness and getting people into fitness, I was like, you guys are hooked on this too much. You guys need to dial it down
Sure.
more often than not. And the good thing to me is like my understanding now with zone two is like that is the thing for some athletes that, like you say, low impact, we're totally agreeing. This can be a far less harmful and beneficial thing to sprinkle in. And what you mentioned, super imperative, separate from another workout where there's a decompression, where there's reloading of carbohydrates. So you're not doing 2 to 3 hour workouts, right? You can actually just completely like if you have a practice at night, you do zone two in the morning, not running, not swimming if you're not used to it, but zone two on an elliptical or something like that at night, you probably feel fresh, right?
Theoretically, you should be well recovered by then, even if you
Yeah,
go to work.
yeah. Zone two
Yeah.
is and so it's like a great thing that you can keep the person busy with, and it's like okay, we need a decompression day because we've had an intense strength training. You did sparring, you did a hard practice. Give them something to do. Zone two cardio, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the thing that you do on that active rest day. And so I think that's important for any athlete, whether it's boxing, running, like understand that 6 days in a row won't work because every day after to me after the third is where you see diminishing returns on most
Yeah.
people. And it's like if it's a practice, if it's a run, whatever you expect to perform on, and this is the key for all athletes to appreciate, every practice, and essentially for runners a run would be a practice, and for a boxer practice or a spar is a practice,
Mm-hmm.
is a performance piece. You're performing your skill to try to learn your skill better. And if you go in too fatigued, your learning is diminished. And
For sure.
so you're going backwards at that very moment. And you're literally putting in less and less good quality reps. You literally just practice being tired. You're not practicing being
Yes.
fresh. And the only time it's almost like not quite as extreme as the old days of, hey, we're just gonna not give you water during the football practice. You ever hear that? They used to
Oh,
like
lived
dehydrate the
it.
football. Oh, you
Yes,
did it. You did it.
absolutely. Water was for weak. Look, I'm 15 and it's 100 degrees out with 60% humidity. Like, give me some water. I will be better off. What are you talking about? Are you trying to make us a team that wins? Or you're just trying to make us tired and beat up? Because if you want us to actually like get better during this practice so we can beat our competition, destroying our bodies and having us do junk practice work isn't making us better.
Totally great. And that was the old mantra. Like, I mean,
For sure.
training was looked at as like, how can we make things harder? And assuming you always adapt. And I did the same thing. I thought, hey, if I make things harder, I'll adapt. I'll adapt. It's like, you're not fucking Superman. And this even, like, I'm going on tangents here, but when you'll appreciate on that same thing about humidity and just sweating, fucking drives me insane when people are working out in like sweats, and boxers will do sweatsuits because they're trying to lose weight. I'm like, do you move faster or slower when you're hot? Slower. So less calories burned. Like, I mean, you're just literally making everything worse for yourself. So you're not actually going to lose more body fat, not to mention it's so fucking marginal amount.
For sure.
And so it's like, make everything in every practice environment more optimal. The only time that I do think that it makes sense is if you have to perform in a warm environment, like that's the event.
Yes, heat acclimation is one thing,
Yeah.
but for the sake of sweating more, it's absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm.
It is so dumb. I have a pretty good friend who was a high level athlete, and I'm talking like in the NFL, who is now, we're 39, 40 years old, my friends I went to high school with, and he gets back into running and he's wearing a sauna suit. And he's like, well, because I'll burn more fat and I'm sweating more. And I'm like, yeah, but if you just didn't wear the sauna suit, you'd actually be able to work harder in that run, which would probably in turn, if you were really using this to burn calories and burn fat or whatever wrong reason you're using it for, like by your logic, you would actually probably be expending more energy without the sauna suit because you wouldn't be depleted. And on the subject of hydration, I know it goes the same for boxers, but like running in the heat, I mean, trail running in 98 degrees and 60% humidity, you can't possibly drink enough water to be rehydrated. Like you're just you're just wetting the whistle, right? You're just trying to not get completely like almost like borderline like unhealthy or sick. But like in a boxing match, however long the rest is, the
Yeah.
couple squeezes of water that you get, that's not replenishing the amount of sweat that you lose during the round. So you can't possibly replenish the fluids that you are losing by sipping on water throughout your bout. But not doing it is only going to make it harder and only going to affect your performance negatively. Like we're all high level athletes are all performing in a dehydrated state,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that you have to suffer through it. You can still sip on some water. You can still, you know, have some fluids because your performance is suffering otherwise.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's great to chat with a coach like you, where you have this idea of understanding more of the parameters that, I mean, it's just like understanding we want to create more ideal parameters for every athlete to practice better, to be stronger, to be healthier. And not getting caught up in the nonsense of all one way or the other, as we both, I think, came to agree. It's like it's a mixture of zone two and high intensity interval training. It's understanding that there's nuances in recovery. It's understanding that there's way more that goes into it. But once you understand those fundamentals, it can be simple because then you can just
Yes,
show up, right?
for sure. And I mean, it is simple because like I'm not an expert on all of these topics, but I've gone through, like, I've been there, kind of like, you've said, like, I've done this dumb shit, right? And I am continuing to learn and will always be learning, but like, I'm not a professor of these. I'm not going to like go to a college and like teach a college level course, but like, I understand the nuance and I've weeded through the bullshit and I've had the experience to where I can, apply this to the base level of knowledge that I have about fitness and weed through these things so other people don't have to. And I always say, like, I've spent enough money on junk supplements in my days, so you don't have to. Like, I've done enough of this stuff that we're talking about that negatively affects your performance, so you don't have to. I've tried the crash diets, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
And like just understanding the nuance and how to apply it, I think is what separates a coach from like somebody who's just practicing.
Totally agree. I had a client say this to me years ago, probably 10 years ago, and it allowed me to finally have value for my worth, because he said, well, you're the filter. There's just so much sounds out there.
Nice.
There's so many people who have things on the information, but someone needs to be able to condense it and say, clean this shit up. The filter of all the noise and everything is like, what is useful? Because there is some great information that you mentioned yourself, I'm similar, where it's like, we're always learning. There's
Of
always new
course.
things coming out where it's like, I didn't address zone two as much earlier in my career and even the last couple of years. And now I'm addressing it. Now I'm seeing benefit for my athletes. So we're using the filtration process, and it's hard for athletes or anyone general public because there's so much information. And
Yeah.
so it can be really difficult, but it's important for people to value that what strength coaches are trying to do is get you more optimal recovery more than anything, keep you out of harming yourself, as you said it very well, and to be able to make it where it's like just be able to show up for practice good. Like whatever you're doing for your sport, you want to do that the best you can. And then everything else is just like icing on the cake to just sharpen the edges. So I would love to know, because we had a great chat here. I'm certain I'll probably have you on in the future because we got a lot of shit we can talk about when it comes to strength
For sure.
conditioning. I'd actually, in the future, what I'd love to do is I want you to go through more of your running ideas because I am poorly educated in that and I had some basis. So in the future, we'll chat more about your discipline. But let's talk very quickly about what is your most recent ambition? What are you really excited coming down the pipeline?
As far as like
I
personal,
love to
my
know
personal.
anything. I love to know anything that gets you excited.
All right, I guess I wasn't expecting this. You know, I don't know. My mind is like going to my training, and I don't really know right now. Like, I have gone from like, I've done almost 30 Spartan races,
Wow.
and I spent 3 to 4 years of like not even being on the radar of like placing top 10. Like, I'm talking like 30 to 50th in my age group. And last year, I finally cracked top 10 in a couple of races. So that was super exciting for me. And, as an athlete, like, athletes might be able to appreciate this. Like, I'm 40, I have nothing to prove. Um, Sometimes these events, they're kind of geared towards specific strengths, right? Like, runners have a serious advantage in a Spartan race. I'm very good at the obstacles. Like, I'm like really nimble, and I've always been good at calisthenics. So like monkey bars and climbing shit is really easy for me. But I'm not a great runner. Now, somebody who's like a great runner but not good at the obstacles has the advantage on me. So the work that I would have to do to get from 10th place to third place isn't something that I'm willing to do. Right. Like, it would be so much work, but it also take away from some of the things that I enjoy. Um, I know this is kind of a buzzword right now, but I am a hybrid athlete in the truest sense, not in the sense of like I do cardio and I do strength training, but in the sense that I am stronger than the runners and faster than the lifters.
Mhm.
A vast majority of them, right? Weight straight like weight ratio, like, I'm a buck 75 and I have a decent deadlift. I can do a 90-pound weighted pull up. Like, runners aren't doing that, you
Mhm.
know. Um, Strength trainers aren't like, or like lifters aren't just like going out and running a sub 2 half marathon or like a 6 minute mile. So I'm happy that my training does that and allows me to do those both things. So I'm not willing to do what I would have to do to like crack top 3 in a Spartan race.
Mhm.
Um, but I was able to go out and run a sub 2 half marathon, a couple weeks ago. So I am sitting in this position of like what excites me, and I'm trying to figure that out currently. Um, Aside from that, like, I'm just excited that like my wife and I are just continuing to like grow our life together, and we've been together for over 6 years, but like we're still growing and building this life together that we're very lucky to have, and we work hard to have it. So like it's not really just luck because we both work our butts off, but personal life, that's That's what excites me. Um, I'm excited to continue growing my business and working with different people. And I think I'm just excited for my hard work to pay off.
Mm.
And I'm also just excited for the people that work with me for their hard work to pay off. You know, like it's super satisfying when you get a client's progress pictures and you like put them side by side. You know, like if you have a fat loss client, like getting like pictures 3 months apart and like seeing the change, like that's super exciting to me. So a lot of my clients are kind of in this phase where a lot of them are making some pretty awesome results, getting awesome results right now, and like that's what's exciting for me. So uh, I know I have some long-winded answers, but I guess that's my long-winded answer of what excites me right now.
I love how in depth it was because, like, I asked that question. A lot of people, and it's fine. Anyone can answer it
Of
anyway. I don't
course.
try to steer it. And it's like when you took the time to actually think about it, I actually prefer it because you look and going through the levels because a lot of people can even just go more business, but you went personal, you went into fitness, and I love that. I totally agree when it comes to business. Like so rewarding to see people get what they're going for, to see that difference in them. They see it in themselves. And it's like, hey, this is working. When you get that moment where you're like, this is working, that's like the magic. And then I love when they send it and sometimes they forget to look back. So I'll do like a video of like, hey,
Oh,
just so you see, like you're fucking different here. Like
for
you're
sure. They
very
have no clue.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true that we love to see that for our clients because, like I said earlier, we didn't get in the personal training. I didn't become a personal trainer to be rich.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's really about helping other people experience what we've experienced. Like that's
Totally.
really why I got into personal training. That's not what kept me into personal training, but like the reason I think almost every personal trainer can say like fitness and nutrition changed my life. I want to help people do the same thing. I want to help people
Mm-hmm.
experience that as well. That's pretty much why we get into personal training. So when you actually have like the physical proof, because I can see it through the data. You know what I mean? Like I track my clients' heart rate recovery and resting heart rate, and we see the weights that they're lifting. I know it's happening. You know what I mean? Like I know my program works. I've been doing this for 15 years. Like I know what I do works. As long as you can get somebody to do something consistently, like we said,
Yeah.
it's going to work. I have no doubt about that, right? But when they put the physical proof, when they send me the pictures and I put the physical proof side to side, and you know they don't know it's coming, you know they're just like, oh yeah, like I don't see much of a difference in my pictures. But when you put it side to side and you send it to them, they're like, holy shit, I didn't even notice that. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
looking in the mirror doesn't do it justice unless you go from 21% body fat to 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe a stretch, but like, you know what I mean? Like, unless you start to see some visible abs and you've been overweight or like a high body fat percentage, like you don't really see it looking in the mirror. The mirror is a liar just as much as the scale is. But when you put two pictures side by side, you're like, holy shit, like I actually am crushing it. That excites me.
Especially because the mirror is so day to day that you can get like some people like kind of see it and then other days they feel more bloated, maybe they ate more
Yes,
food, and so it's like it's such a gradual progression for people that it's like you become acclimated to this new view of yourself so you're not even aware. And
for
so when you
sure.
do the photos and before and after and you're like, oh, that's where I was like a month ago or 2 months ago, 3 months
Mm-hmm.
ago. And especially because it's like all the magic happens 2 to 3 months down the road, and so you don't get to see like that real tangible like I'm definitely different until you stick it out, but once you
Yeah.
do, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And 3 months isn't that long. You're right. That's when the magic happens more so than one, but like 3 months isn't that long. Like it can be a good amount of time to lose some body fat. But if we're talking a skill like running or getting better at boxing, like just wait 3 years. Like I know that sounds extreme, but like, dude, you will be a completely different person if you train a skill for 3 years. You will laugh at your low level of skill when you started out. And people are like, oh, I don't want to wait 3 years to be a better runner. It's like, yo, it's been the best experience of my life. Like 3 years later, I'm a good runner and I'm like flying through the woods like a child, totally blissed out. I feel like I'm playing as opposed to training.
Right.
And like that took 3 years of accessory work, zone 2 work, zone 5 work sprinkled in. like agility work. So now that I literally can just hop around this route, that route, jump over this rock, jump over this log, and just literally feel like a 40-year-old man child. Took over 3 years.
It's such a,
So
that's such a,
patience.
yeah, it's such an important lens that people need to know how long is and how
Yes,
that actually happens. And so, people hesitate to sign up for like a 6 month or a 1 year program. It's like that's scratching the surface. And I actually think maybe it's just a handful of people. Like I think if you, depending on the person and the skill, if you told them, okay, you're going to be a way better boxer in 3 years, or even like in your career, you'll be way better at your job in 3 years. And
mm-hmm.
most
Yeah,
people be
yeah,
like, yeah, that makes sense. And you need to have that forgiveness when you start your first job, when you start a boxing, you expect to suck. When you say you're going to be a totally different person in your body in 3 years, that is a really like, they're not ready to accept that.
for
But if you
sure,
can understand how that skill development would happen in anything else, put that kind of standardization into your fitness and your body composition, it's like you could accept the process more and what you're trying to accomplish. Because
for sure,
people get so caught up in that transformation the first 3 months that they're unaware that what they're doing isn't just a transformation physically, it is mentally, and it's literally building skills in life. It's, how you can show up with discipline, a skill, how you can show up in nutrition, cooking for yourself, preparing for yourself, a skill, going to bed on time, a skill. Like these are skills, these are habits and skills. Like, because I know how to make a high protein meal really quick. A lot of people don't. People
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
how to track. People don't know how to like, oh, I
Use a
don't even,
scale.
yeah. And I don't even know how to track. I don't have any scales or anything. I know how to still guesstimate these calories from skills over time.
For
And so
sure,
when people can start to look at their fitness transformation more as skill development, hopefully that really kind of lends itself to more patience in the process. So I think
for
it's
sure. I have a quick question. I know you're trying to wrap this up. I have
no
a question for
worries.
you though.
I love it.
Can do you see will a boxers can you see their hand speed improve? Like can you say to somebody like, if we do this and we drill this, like your hand speed is going to improve? Or is somebody's like are their hands are just as quick as they are? I mean, I know that like I highly doubt people have like hit ceilings at a young age, but like can you see people's like hand speed improve over time?
I can see it from skill development. I haven't seen it from directly working with athletes. I think it's especially in the sport, it speed is a decision. So like when you're on the field of play, you got to be able to just be explosive. And I think there's a huge component to that that is genetic capacity. Like I've seen it within some of my fighters where like initially they because you start out awkward in the sport, right? So when you're first developing, you're first getting the pattern, you just can't move it fast, you don't know how to whip, you don't know the mechanics of making a punch relaxed and then snappy. And so then you just see the speed develop as they're more relaxed and more intuitive with their actions, and then you see a lot of speed
That makes
development.
sense.
So that's usually how you see the speed based on decision making. And as they get in the ring more, decision making becomes more and more intuitive. And that's not going to be a strength conditioning coach's thing. We're just trying to make you feel fresh in there. You got to literally have punches come at your face to
Yeah,
be able to make that decision, right?
that makes sense.
Doesn't matter if it's hand pads. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like the tapping hand pads you see all the time. The hand pads don't do it. The heavy bag doesn't do it. The sprinting, nothing does it other than a punch coming at your face, your nervous system making a decision.
Or
And so that's where a strength coach, like, we'll still do some strength stuff as far as working on explosiveness, working on the force development. There's still things that will complement that. But I believe like 80 to 90% of it comes from that decision you have to make, right?
that makes sense.
Yeah, great question. I
Cool.
love it. Well, this is a fun chat, man. Like, I mean, we
Agreed.
went we went well over just because we flowed with it. So we're gonna have to link up in the future. I appreciate it so much. Why don't you let the listeners know where they can find more about you?
Basically, I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is at Patrick DiBello Fitness, and my Facebook is Patrick DiBello. But to be honest, I post the same thing on both. Probably, actually, Facebook. I probably do some more like written posts and photos like that, and probably more of my personal life. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook are probably the ways to go.
Love it. It's great. And would you say that you actually tend to work with, like, it sounds like just a lot more runners? So if people are really into running, is that kind of more of your niche?
Yeah, I would honestly general public and and runners. Like I have a plenty of moms of two kids that work full-time jobs that want to get stronger and maybe do a 5K,
Hmm.
um, business owners. And then, I have a good amount of Spartan racers or people running half marathons. But if I really had to like pin down my demographic, to be honest, a good amount of my clients are busy moms who want to get stronger, run a 5K. I have probably 5 women right now running 5Ks for Thanksgiving. Um,
Awesome.
so definitely not like the 1%, like it's not, I'm
Hmm.
not working with like the high level athletes.
Hmm.
I also have a guy who's training for the police SWAT test. So I
Cool.
push him a little bit harder. It's like a mile and a half in nine, uh, 940 or something like that. Uh,
Okay.
then sit ups, push, which is pretty, maybe it's 10:30, but either way, it's pretty fast. Like
That's
it's a pretty
fast.
fast mile and a half. But still, like, yeah, he works hard, but I wouldn't say he's like a 1% athlete. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, there's very few people that are working with the 1%, So I just love working with people who want to be athletic, but don't feel the need to be the 1%er of like a real professional athlete. Like, we talked about earlier, like you can just be the general public and still have fun and train hard and get better. And I think that's like the most rewarding part of fitness.
I totally agree. One of the best things I learned from my boxing coaches very early in my career, because he was a trainer as well. And he said, you're going to find, even though you think you want to work with the athletes, because that's where all the
Yes.
limelight is, it's the gen
Yes.
pop. It's the people who
Yes.
show up because they are the most
Dude.
appreciative. They're the ones who are sacrificing more, and they're always going to thank you the most, and you'll see the biggest impact. And I couldn't agree more. They're the heroes
Yeah.
in the world for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, not to call anybody out, but like, you see Ben Bruno training like all the celebrities and it like seems cool and it seems glamorous, but like I don't really want to work with like athletes or famous people. I want to work with the general population who wants to be athletic
Mm-hmm.
and just improve their life and smile and have fun and play. And like, one thing that we didn't really touch on, but just real quick, like with those people, it's about programming something that they can do on their worst day. And by
Mm-hmm.
worst day, I mean like the day that the mom's kids have like been up all night and she has to like rush them to get on the bus and then has to get to a work meeting, or she has to drive them to school unexpectedly and then get to work and then has 30 minutes like to work out. Like if you can't program for that person to like still get that workout in, then I think your programming needs to be adjusted.
Couldn't agree more. Like I say, athletes got the limelight, but they have a hard life. But I think
For sure.
because they get paid for it, it's the people who
Yes.
don't. It's the everyday person that is actually suffering and struggling. And those very similar to yourself. I want to help an everyday person feel a little bit above average because they have every
Yes.
right to and believe that they're capable of more.
For
So
sure. Nothing's worse than wasted talent, and we all have some sort of talent we can tap into and live to a more full potential.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Thanks
Awesome.
so much for this, Patrick. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Patrick for that wonderful conversation. We really got into it. We had so much we would talk about, and that's why it went a good 20 minutes over what I'd even allocated for. And I had fun doing it. He's a really fun guy, really smart guy. You know that he's really passionate about what he does. And that's why we got into this industry, both of us, because we're very passionate about it. And I do want to hit on that right off the bat. That's what makes a good trainer, someone who's passionate about just the industry, being in it, being around to help people. This is not necessarily a career to make a lot of money in. It's a career that you want to connect with people, just as he mentioned, because we want to help you not make the mistakes, not have to take the wrong supplements, do the wrong path. We want to be that filter for you so you have an easier time going to where you want to go and empowering you. And I really hope you got that from his message and my message, that we're similar coaches in that aspect. I thought it was really cool to hear his transition. I always love hearing people who are willing to take the risk and to go into new directions, to try new things. I think it's a scary, terrifying thing to say, "Hey, I'm no longer going to be this career, but I'm going to risk it. I'm going to go after like to go start a record label." Like, I mean, That's amazing. Like, who starts a record label just out of a hobby? I think it's incredible. I know a friend from our boxing club got into DJing, and he's not doing it for money. He's just doing it because he enjoys it and they're passionate about it. And I can't encourage that kind of idea enough. Something I really want to really highlight from there and how that relates to fitness is it is so important that we have aspects of our life of enjoyment. How can you make fitness something you enjoy? And we had really kind of talked about so many different ways that someone could enjoy fitness. It is true to current understanding of physiology, strength needs to be in there a little bit. Some fundamental strength training will help any other pursuit that you have be better and healthier because it creates injury resilience. As I mentioned, it's the most important thing. So let's say you want to be a runner and because you enjoy running or box or whatever uh, like I said, pickleball. Like if you just love pickleball and I really think if someone struggles finding an interest, try to find one. Like literally go be willing to try something. Not pickleball, paddle. Paddle I've heard of recently start to be a new one, racquetball, anything that actually will help if it involves other people, because then you get the social atmosphere. And then if you can have some sort of a competitive thing that whether or not you're a competitive person, it'll make you intrinsically motivated, which means in the moment you're wanting to do what you're doing. And if you have that pursuit, that thing that you want to do, then it's like, by the way, if you do strength training, it's a better chance you're not going to get injured. That's going to motivate you to go do your strength training. By the way, if you do strength training, you might actually be able to pivot while you're doing your stuff on paddle or racquetball. You'll be able to handle the shifts left to right a little bit better. You'll feel stronger. Okay, that's motivation to go show up, even if it's a couple times a week. So if you're thinking that, oh man, I'm not really always motivated to go to training, I'm not always motivated to, there's a very common problem. Find a way to create an intrinsic relationship with it where you want to show up for the sake of it. And this is actually why I do agree with group fitness, as I had mentioned. Now, I think a lot of the high intensity interval training programs are very poorly designed, and they're probably highly good chance that you could end up even injured or overtrained. Um, in comparison to something that would be more well structured from a strength coach. However, I'd like a little of clients doing it because it's something that provides the environment. So I do hope one day to have something like my old business TTF, where we created a healthy strength conditioning, and I do some office workouts where it's a healthy strength conditioning program that does create the group environment. And it took me a while to realize that some people need this. Some people need a coach there. Otherwise, they're just not intrinsically motivated enough and competitive enough with themselves to want to go do it, even if all the benefits inherently seem to be there. So if that's the person you are, that's okay. Start there. Now, I even had an individual start in a group class, and that got her interested. That got her intrigued. And then I showed her how she could be really interested in the weights. Hey, you're doing more on the squat. You're doing more on this. You're doing more here. And that individual actually started, she was really late one day. And this is the office group workouts, right? She was late. She's like, I only got 20, 30 minutes. But she was so excited to see what she could do in the squat. So, okay, we're doing a quick squat. We'll do a quick push, quick pull, quick sprint, get out of here. And she was done. And she was so pumped to be able to do all those things and to stay consistent. It kept her into it. 20 to 30 minutes on a tough day, as Patrick says, is enough. And that's what people need to understand is like enough doesn't have to be everything. It just has to be enough that you can do consistent on your worst day. So I think it's super important that if you haven't found your thing, find your thing. It's super important that you're trying to pursue something. It's the mantra of this podcast for a reason. It adds so much value to life, and it'll add value to the accountability in the process. Then, like Patrick says, hey, if I feel better in the training, I wonder if better nutrition could serve me, and all the dominoes fall forward from there. Far easier, way easier. And this is very true that all of your body composition goals are just regulated by your nutrition. Let's say you stayed at your desk sedentary, you didn't do any training. We could completely change your body composition by the food you eat, simply. But are you going to do it routinely? Are you going to show up for that discipline routinely? Are you going to be as motivated? And by the way, You might have a healthier body composition. It doesn't mean you're healthier. Exercise has so many other health benefits from you doing that stressor, from you doing that challenge. You have more muscle tissue, you have better, healthier joints, especially if you're in a sedentary job. I'm sitting right now, rounding my shoulders. Well, I do a ton of back work to actually get more balance and strength in the upper back muscles so that my chest doesn't round forward too much. I make sure that my legs move more. You make sure you get your 10K steps in. Aerobic system needs to be stimulated. And so the exercise has so many other components of overall well-being. And I've heard this statement very early in my university degree, and they said if exercise was in a pill, it'd be the most prescribed drug on the market because it decreases any disease risk. There's almost every single disease state out there, outcomes improve from it. So it's not just about body composition goals, it's about health overall. So if you can make that physical activity something you're excited about, try environment, try a new sport, try anything to get you to go from point A to point B because you're curious about it. It'll make all the difference in the world long term. And I really love our conversation around the zone two for boxers. I think everyone can benefit a little bit by knowing that zone two and high intensity cardio are very essential for feeling overall healthier because zone two, as you mentioned, is the aerobic capacity. It's the ability to deliver nutrients to your body and to bring down your heart rate. So heart rate going up isn't a bad thing. If you're, doing a sprint upstairs, like, oh man, I'm out of breath. Well, you just did a sprint upstairs. You tried hard, right? A boxer finish a round of boxing. He's like, man, I'm really out of breath after that. Was like, were you trying to be the faster fighter? Were you carrying a high pace? If you're doing all these things and you're working hard, expect it to. That's the idea of working hard. How fast can your heart rate come back down? That's the skill. And for a boxer, it's super imperative because otherwise you're going to accumulate the stress throughout the whole between the minute off, you're not coming back down to baseline. You're going to have a more tired second round. Not coming down to baseline between third, you're going to have an even worse third. So that's why it's so imperative for a boxer. But for everyone, any person should see zone two is a great way that you can have something not super stressful, but still be active. And I think that's really helpful for people to see the effect of that, especially when it comes to stress management. So let's say you're a busy individual. You're actually doing a lot of stressful things at work, and your work pushes you hard, maybe physically or mentally. Well, a zone two cardio aspect. If you're a runner, go for slow, steady jog. Again, if you're a runner is the preface I put there. We talked about it. I wish I dove more into the skill of running. It's like he had mentioned the skill of being able to swim. If you're not a runner, don't think that you owe yourself a run because runners run and there's literally mechanics that go into it, no different than a swimmer. However, you don't need the mechanics to be able to do an incline walk at a slightly higher pace, maybe a faster pace walk outside if you're looking for baseline cardio because you're still just trying to get into fitness, or you're into fitness. Don't sleep on an elliptical. These things are the best fucking machines out there for low impact, as far as I'm concerned. Some people hate them. I love them. I have, bad hip and knee issues, and they've always been good machines for me where I can get my heart rate up. It's arms and legs. Anything can get boring. Like that's the problem with zone two. It can get boring. So find a way, again, intrinsic motivation. Watch some Netflix. Zone two. If again, you're in a stressful job, physically or mentally, you take 20 to 30 minutes, zone two, which could be the nasal breathing test. You can just use the talk test thinking, hey, I'm slightly picking it up. Something that you could sustain, be like, I can handle this pace for 30 to 60 minutes, like not changing it. The other one I actually kind of mess around with where it's going to be kind of like zone two, and I call it medium intensity interval. I might have talked about it on the podcast before, but I highly recommend you mess around with it to get rid of the boredom. And what you do is I say kind of harder pace for a minute and then a kind of lighter pace. You could play with the intensity if you want. This could be on elliptical, it could be on a bike, it could be on incline walk. I find the incline walk, it's more of a pain in the ass to adjust the settings because like it's easy to just pick a pace on an incline walk, but on the elliptical and bike, it can kind of be hard to sustain because you always have to push your effort. So it's easier for me to push kind of hard and to dial down, push kind of hard, dial down. And on average, I'm right around zone two cardio. I never really get into that accumulation of too much what we call threshold work. And we should have specified what threshold work is. So I'll give you a late rundown of what we were talking about. Essentially, you have something called a lactic threshold. I'm going to get a little bit unnecessarily sciencey here, but as a strength coach, I have to kind of describe this properly. And it is not that it's lactic acid, because lactate itself is not really poisonous for you, but your body uses it actually, uses it in circulation. Your heart runs off it. But lactate is produced after you're in a certain intensity. And that's usually when you're working kind of really hard in like 30 to 45 seconds. You're working really hard. That's when the muscle burns. But the muscle burning is probably likely, we don't know exactly, but likely due to muscle acidity. And the body doesn't want your muscles to be too acidic. This is why something like beta alanine came into a lot of pre workouts, also known that sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, can also prevent it. And these are called buffers because they bring down the muscle acidity. So if you have routine supplementation, I've talked about this on the one where we had the nutrition expert on for boxers. If you routinely take beta alanine, that can actually bring down your muscle acidity. And so if your shoulders normally start burning, they won't burn as much. So it is a good benefit for athletes dealing with more explosive effort or that might deal with muscle acidity. My whole point there is that's threshold work, is where you're working into it and you're staying in it. But you really only want your sport to do that to you. You don't necessarily want to stay there if you're not doing your sport, because your sport's going to do it. And if you listen to Don Moxley talk about this, that's where all the damage happens that actually starts to really affect your recovery. That's where your nervous system has a harder time recovering, where you feel it, as he had mentioned. If you feel it too much, you get that endorphin rush right after and everything. That's going to affect your performance later in the week, maybe the next day. He had said when you go into like really high stressful states, it can be in there for another 7 to 10 days. And so we really got to be careful how much you're doing that. So if your sport's going to do it, you have to deal with that. So outside of your sport, let's just do zone 2, which doesn't put you in that state because that's the stuff that brings you out of it. And then you do the high intensity sprints to practice your ability to produce force fast. And depending on your training continuum, we didn't get into enough of high intensity stuff, but depending on how far, let's say, a boxer is before a competition, we might be working on just literally ability to produce speed fast. So just doing big sprints, big rests, or the ability to repeat sprints. And so when a fighter is months away from competition, we're going to work on force development and speed. So I would be doing like a 6 to maybe 20-second sprint, but usually 6 to 15, probably even 6 seconds because it's just a sprint. Because I want his body to literally practice being like a sprinter. And that can be literally a sprint, but it could be a boxing sprint. And not any strength coach, not too many strength coaches do this, if any, but I will get my boxers to do that because then they're practicing being as explosive as they can, but really big, adequate rests. And then as you get closer to your event, you bring down that rest interval and you keep those short spurts. You actually have to work on the appropriate amount of sprint intensity because it can't be 100% anymore. It has to be closer to 90. So you have an efficient sprint capacity. And a lot of well-experienced boxers know that it's not 100% that I'm knocking you with. It's an 85 to 90 constantly, spurt, spurt, spurt. It's not a knockout blow every time. The only time you're trying to knock out is literally when you see them dazed on the ropes. Then it's worth that vulnerability. And this is important for anyone who thinks about boxing, if you're interested in it or if you're doing it. You can't run a 100-meter pace for 1,200 meters. Your body will not be able to produce that force because the energy substrates that it requires will run out. That's just a human capacity. However, if you become so efficient at the 1,200, you have a big, long stride. That's how you win that 1,200 meter. And a better analogy is soccer. Like you're trying to spurt, jog, spurt, jog. That's what boxing is. It's explosive, repeated sprints. We're not marathon runners, but we are a lot closer to boxers in that we continue to sprint throughout the event. So hopefully that gives you some context. And again, I want to even come back for general health and fitness for everyone, is I think it's super healthy to have the capacity to both sprint and endure. So you could do once a week, maybe sprint work. And then again, big rest always, whenever you're doing sprint work, high intensity interval work requires more rest than work. And so many people get this wrong. The HIIT classes get this wrong. They go 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. So it's like 10 on, 10 off, or the Tabata 20 on, 10 off, which I think is terrible. It's an inverted Tabata, 10 on, 20 seconds off. Repeat those sprints. And I think you could even go longer, 10 seconds, 30 seconds off. Think about how much harder you go. 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off. How much harder would your intensity be? So you actually get to be more explosive, more hard work, and you recruit more heavy neurons. And I think that even helps possibly with the right training program, better sustainability for muscle development. Now, that is a really intense thing. I know I'm going on a tangent here on this, but when people want to really kind of utilize this stuff, whether you're a boxer or you're an everyday person, that's so intense. It should only really be done once or twice a week, to like not a ton, right? Even though we were talking about boxers and runners, every person has to see himself like an athlete in capacity to recover. HIIT training more than once a week. If you have a strength training plan, probably isn't going to benefit you a ton. Now, maybe twice if you get adequate rest. And again, I'm about the environment enjoyment. Just make sure the rest of your program isn't too intense. And then when you want to do more activity, go with some low intensity. One of my favorite protocols is actually doing high intensity with low intensity in very large breaks. Very simple protocol to mess around with. And it's about a 20 to 30-second run on an incline treadmill. You could also do outside. You could do this anywhere. Now, the very first 1 or 2 runs, you cannot go 10 out of 10. You have to kind of like ramp up for safety. But eventually, you're going so hard in that 20 to 30 seconds that you need a 5-minute rest. And so it's basically 20, 30 on, 5-minute rest. But you do that like 5, 6, 7 times. It's going to be 45 minutes. And in between, I typically would do this on an incline treadmill. I would do incline walking, so I'm hitting zone 2. So I'm bringing down my heart rate, bringing down the heart rate, and then I regenerate all that power and I go again. So that's a way you can hit 2 in possibly in one workout. So I think there's some benefit there for both, hopefully boxers, anyone who's interested in fitness, to appreciate that high intensity has to be done at the right time, sprinkled in, because it makes you a more explosive boxer, being able to recover better and still getting in that zone 2, low impact, so that you have the ability to recover. And every person can actually benefit from both those styles of training and stay out of that lactic threshold a little bit more. But I think I'm going to leave it there because we covered a lot in the episode. It's a long episode because we went back and forth. And I think I want to leave it off with the exact same thing we were talking about, that fitness for everyday clients doesn't have to be perfect. There's a lot of different avenues you can go into, and we should be able to adapt every day to what you need to do. We were talking off air about how, we're both clearly really into fitness. He's into his Spartan races. I'm into powerlifting. And at the same time, some days you just got to pause and be like, hey, today I can just rest. I've actually never taken more rest days in my fitness career since I was early 20s than I have this year. And it feels great. Ever since getting into powerlifting and worrying more about performance, my ability to produce force, I was taking more rest days. I was paying attention to how my body felt. Coming into a workout and not feeling really tight the day before felt great. Not feeling like a bodybuilder always beat up. Now, bear in mind, for bodybuilding, that's actually like you work through the pain a little bit, and you can adapt. But even now, I'm trying to build more muscle, but also strength, and just be more of a person, because I'm now in my master's of psychology. And so I'm fucking busy. And over the weekend, things happen where it's like, no, I'm just not stressing activity. I might, this is the first time, honestly, in the last several, again, I'll probably say 15 odd years, that I might not be hitting 200 grams of protein every day, and I'm living just fine. So you got to have some room for error within your lifestyle and know that just enough is enough. But it's always like 0 times 0 is 0. Like if you're not getting in one workout a week routinely, that's where we got to improve. And the other end of the spectrum, don't think that you need to go all the way into 5, 6, 7 in order to be successful. The people who are doing 5 workouts a week just have such an interest in it. Right now, I'm on average 3 to 4, and it feels great. and I'm excited. I'm recovered more. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting a little bit bigger, and it feels sustainable given my life is so busy. And so I really encourage you to have that flexibility with yourself. Find something you're really interested in. Find something that you are really excited and to make fitness fun for yourself. And then from there, try to have a flexibility within your schedule. It allows you to do that even on your worst weeks. And you can actually start to look at this pursuit of fitness, the skill development of fitting fitness into your life routinely. Remember, this came way back. I heard this initially from Jordan Sayat. Fitness should fit your life, not your life fit fitness. And so that's always the goal. And we mentioned it's a skill. So be patient with that process along the way. I hope you really enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Go check out Pat's page if you're more into the running and trying to fit in some strength conditioning while you're trying to do some running goals, because that's not my cup of tea. He's clearly a great coach. He knows his stuff. Thanks again to Pat. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review. Please share this with anyone that you think might benefit from it, because that's what we're trying to do, is just connect to more people and benefit more people chasing their ambitions. And thank you. I really appreciate you as a listener, as always, because I'm always here to help you chase your own ambition, because we know life is not about the pursuit of happiness, but rather the happiness within your pursuit. And I'll catch you next time.